Wow. How about this incredible panel? Thank you all so much for joining us today. Hello, Your Excellency.
Hello,
How are
good to
you?
see
It's
you.
great to see you. We started off with a pretty incredible presentation from the Secretary of Treasury and His Excellency, Finance Minister El Jaddan. And now we want to talk a little bit about how these great goals are implemented, actually implemented in the world of finance and in the business sector. Larry, I'm going to start with you, because I remember coming to the kingdom with you in 2019. I think you had one of the BlackRock board meetings here, perhaps, and you invited a few others to come with you. And you, I would say, were one of the first leaders in finance to really see the opportunity in the kingdom. What was it you saw? How do you think things are going, and what worries might you have or challenges?
Well, it's great to be here. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. For somebody, I think we were talking about it over a dinner. I've been here over 65 times, over 20 years. And probably the most important characteristic change that we started witnessing around the announcement of Vision 30. So we're in 2017, and then obviously 2 years into it from 19. The kingdom is now taking responsibility for itself. I would say 20 years ago, the kingdom was a follower and maybe lacking self-confidence in its own self. And I think around the Vision 30 was really a statement around taking control, taking responsibility, broadening the economy from just a oil-based economy, but expanding from upstreaming and downstreaming, but then beyond, focusing on things like tourism, focusing on the expansion of its capital markets. And so it was very clear to me that the emphasis on 2030 was really a statement to the world that we're going to do it ourselves, that we're going to build our economy, and we're going to build our economy in a way that we are taking control, but importantly, an economy that will be entering then beyond the 21st century to becoming a global leader. And if you look at the details of what Vision 2030 is bringing to the kingdom, is advancing the kingdom to become one of the leading economies in the world. And through the execution, we could see the kingdom being in the top 10 of the largest economies in the world. From an economy that was not even considered one of the advanced economies. And so today, now 2025, we are seeing the opportunities, not just the kingdom being a big financier overseas, which historically most of the men and women who are coming from finance was trying to get money to take and invest overseas. Now what we are seeing is huge opportunities in investing within the kingdom. And I think that is a great example of the transformation from an economy that was an exporter of capital. That economy still remains to be an exporter of capital, as witnessed about the amount of capital that's coming into the United States. But the kingdom now is a great destination for capital. And all of us have now built more resilient offices here. We have investment teams who are creating products now to invest here in the kingdom. And I do believe the opportunity for the kingdom to expand its capital markets to become one of the leading capital markets of the world can be one of the big statements of lifting the kingdom way beyond 2030.
Well, I'm going to get a Saudi perspective from His Excellency. I think Larry's right. There was this enormous boost of excitement, interest, but I think some of the markets within the kingdom were still growing. Capital formation, the kinds of products that actually needed to be built in order to implement some of this growth, particularly from a capital markets perspective. I think you have done a great deal of that now.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And yes, I think the kingdom has marched through with all of these objectives. And to be in the beginning, and I think Sarah is very close to that, the stock market in Saudi Arabia was a very limited one, and now it's one of the largest. It's the seventh, I think, market. We have advanced in diversifying the economy, be it in terms of government revenues, or be it in terms of the exports, or in terms of the domestic production itself. All of these we have done. I mean, if you look at what is happening in the tourism industry, for example, a society you remember probably when you first visited was, relatively speaking, a closed economy. Now, tourism is huge. Women's participation rising from negligible number to 36% participation rate. So there has been a lot that has really happened. And in the world of finance, we are contributing our share, but also our economy now needs more because our ambitions are much greater than they were in the past. So we do rely on bankers and financiers, and we rely on those who develop instruments that are useful for our operations. For example, from the Islamic Development Bank perspective, where our bread and butter is basic infrastructure. We need those joint operations. We need that co-financing. I mean, we just signed a couple of months ago to participate in the Rogon Dam in Tajikistan. This is a $6 billion project, but it's going to influence the whole Central Asian region. And one lender could not have done it. We were there, the World Bank was there, the Saudi Fund for Development was there, the other Arab lending institutions were there. So it is going to happen, and it will have a huge impact on the development of that country. And I could give you many, many examples like that, where joint financing is done, where cooperation is done, and even instruments are being developed.
Creation.
Instruments are doing. For example, we have the sukuk. That's our contribution to the world of finance, and I think we only scratched
The surface.
the surface. There's a lot to be done there.
I know one of the bankers you rely on is Jane Fraser and her outstanding team at Citi. Also a long history in the kingdom. But I would say I think Citi, you under your leadership, has deepened the relationship. Maybe just talk a little bit about that.
Oh, it's always wonderful to be back in the kingdom, and thank you so much for the invitation to be here. It's such an exciting time at the moment because you're watching the different ecosystems develop. So having, particularly with what PIF is doing, building out, whether it's in tourism, whether it's in life sciences developing, in gaming and sports, as well as obviously AI, which is opening up so many opportunities. And the piece building on what Larry was talking about, which I think is so wonderful, but also quite remarkable of what the kingdom's done, is this is now mutually beneficial relationship. This isn't the US coming in saying to Saudi what the advice is and what to do. This is about trying to support a partner, but equally a partner supporting the US back home as well. And the different areas that we're seeing is starting to bring new forms of monetization, the securitization market getting built out. I can imagine a next step will be building out a treasury center here. How do we begin deepening and further scaling the capital market, following on the success that you were talking about in the local equity market? So for all of us, it's not just a case of seeing Saudi getting to its rightful place in the global economy, but it's seeing the economy here leading in many of these new ecosystems. And in that sense, I think the innovation is there to be watched, because here is where it's happening.
Definitely. In 2018, Steve Schwarzman was here during that summit. And actually, Blackstone announced a very significant partnership with the kingdom, a $20 billion infrastructure fund. And you've also been coming to the kingdom for a long, long time. Give us an update on that initiative. And maybe, because I'm going to give you a tough one, Steve, what challenges do you think we need to be careful of?
Well, I've been coming to the kingdom since 1991. So some of you were not born yet. And when I came the first time, it was really an adventure for me. There weren't many U.S. financial people even attempting to come here. Since that time, Riyadh has grown at least 8 times in size. On my first trip, I think about half of the roads were dirt roads. And now you come to Riyadh, it's like a revolution. Everything is new. Everything is modern. When I went to a dinner party, which I normally do when I come here, usually about 40, 50 participants, and at one of the dinners, the person who was in charge of the dinner, hit his glass and said, "How many of you attending grew up without either running water or electricity?" And about 60% of the hands went up. At the same time, we were sitting at a table where CNBC was on video. It was like astonishing. So the progress that I have seen in my professional life at the kingdom is like unbelievable. And I was on stage when, with the Crown Prince, there were like 3 of us, when he announced the initiative 2030 and all the things that he was thinking about. It was one of the most ambitious projects I'd ever heard of, could imagine. And I said on the stage at that time, you're going to accomplish a lot of these things, but like all great visions, some of them won't quite happen, and you can't get discouraged about that, because that's the nature of major change. And I've watched what's happened since that time, and it's really remarkable how the kingdom has changed. And for those who are attending, most of you aren't aware of that because it's happening to you. But for those who will come a few times a year, we can see these huge changes.
Yep. Sarah definitely was not born in 1991. And how impressive is it that she is the head of Tadawul? And frankly, that it has grown so much under your leadership. Very nascent, very difficult, choppy waters. You have not only created the market here, you have really made it the 7th largest exchange in the world.
Thank you, Dina. I think I'm very proud to say, with continuous excitement, that now in 2025, 7-8 years into Vision 2030, that this vision has turned Saudi Arabia to a reliable, investable destination. And this is proven by numbers, and I think this is just the beginning. And that is through all the efforts that was been done under the leadership of the kingdom with the vision and with the financial sector development program and everyone working in the capital market to actually create a market that is globally integrated, that is open and trustworthy. And that only happened with public-private partnerships, all the reform and regulation was met with serious innovation, whether from the Saudi participant or also many of the international participants, particularly U.S. banks. I can mention Larry here, BlackRock, actually one of the first to launch ETFs. Franklin Templeton, Jenny, also launched a bond fund and ETF last year. I know also Citigroup has just signed also with PIF a new private credit, I think, fund to invest in Saudi and many others. All this as well happened with a lot of partnership with international partners, but particularly since we are in the Saudi-US Investment Forum, I would like to mention a few examples of a very old relationship. One of them, if we talk about capital market infrastructure, our systems is a partnership between us and NASDAQ that goes more than 20 years back. And now we're working together on upgrading those systems. We have a very advanced stock exchange that was successful in listing the largest listing of Aramco in 2019, where many, I think, in that proven the seriousness of our stock exchange and that we are at a playing level field with the rest of international stock markets, which also led us to be one of the 10th largest exchanges in the world. Sometimes we're the 10th, sometimes we're the 9th, depending on the day and what you look at.
You got promoted to 7 today.
Maybe we reached the 7th at a point in time, but I think the latest data, I think we're the 10th or 9th. And in terms of foreign ownership in the market, it was a journey that started from 2015, but was actually accelerated in 2017. Many partners here also with me on stage were part of this. We worked very closely with investors, BlackRock one of them, to actually work with the indices to convince the international community that to be included in the market in the global indices like MSCI, S&P, FTSE, and others, and be part of the global markets. As a result, from zero QFIs in 2015, 2017 was the launch. Today we have more than 4,000. And I can say that almost 55% of foreign investment through QFI program in our market is US-based. Mm-hmm. And this also demonstrates the deepness of this relationship.
It really does. I was with His Excellency Minister Al-Farah and Jenny Johnson in LA last week, and he really praised you, your leadership, what Franklin Templeton has done, particularly in the last few years, to double down on your investment here. And I think Sarah describes one of the ways you've done that. What's the rest of kind of the Franklin Templeton investment here in the kingdom?
Well, first of all, I was thinking, my first time coming in the kingdom was in 2020, and I've probably been here, I don't know, 15 times. So Larry, even though you're 65, I feel like I'm, catching up on pace. So actually, Franklin Templeton's been in the region for 25 years, and we acquired a company in 2007 that does local equity and fixed income in the region, and so have a pretty big Islamic finance practice. And so actually just last month, we launched a Sukuk private credit. We have a Sharia technology fund. And so not only do we have capabilities, I think, from a global standpoint, but also local. And I think that's really important because part of the opportunity is being able to structure products, and I know that's something that we focus a lot on, that really provide financial inclusion. And so being able to bring in global products, but with kind of a local flavor is important. We opened an office here 2 years ago. We have investment folks in that office, so it's not just a kind of a servicing office, but is a local investment office. And then I would just say that to Larry's point about the kingdom, first of all, I did bring my executive committee here, and they are global investors. And they were shocked by the pace of change. And of course, I looked at them and said, your job is to actually see these things in advance, but you have to be here because honestly, people's view is like they've never seen a country evolve so and transform so dramatically, so quickly. But to the point that Larry was making around the investment, we used to always come here because you wanted to find dollars to invest outside, and now it's about, with 50% of the economy non-oil, it's about the great opportunities inside the country that gets really interesting.
And it's also obviously been a pretty stable time from a global markets perspective. And so when I come back to Larry, you heard Secretary Bessent kind of articulate the economic agenda that President Trump is trying to implement. After Geneva, what did he call it? The Geneva mechanism. The markets went wild and have, I think, continued to stay strong today or overnight. What are you worried about volatility? What are you worried about in the next 90 days and beyond? And I want each of you to think about it from your perspective.
Well, I really don't care about the next 90 days. But let me be clear. The markets are fine. Great opportunity to be long-term investors. Yes, there's going to be a lot of volatility until we have greater certainty as to what is the new equilibrium. And we're learning that the equilibrium is probably sooner than we thought maybe 2-3 weeks ago.
Can you define equilibrium?
Well, I think equilibrium is we know world order. We understand what the U.S. is trying to do in terms of trying to reorder how trade is being done. And I think once we have that certainty, the markets need certainty, I think you're going to have some of the, well, in Europe, there's $12 trillion of money sitting in bank accounts in Europe. In the United States, there's $11 trillion sitting in money market funds. When there is that uncertainty, you're going to keep more and more money in cash, and that's what we've witnessed. In addition, because of the uncertainty and maybe an over-optimism about the United States, we've seen modest reallocation out of the United States into other economies, especially Europe. But we still see global investors overweighting the U.S., and overall, most investors are still underweighted Europe, but less underweighted today. I think one of the key characteristics is going to see, are we going to start seeing more and more money coming into this region over time, money going back into Asia, India, Japan. But I think we are going to be in a period of uncertainty, and we're going to have to start focusing on the role of deficits, which are not part of any conversation. And let's be clear, the U.S. deficits are an issue. The U.S., and as I wrote in an editorial on Election Day in the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. economy needs a 3% growth rate to overcome its deficits. And I do believe what President Trump is trying to do, I believe consistent with what the kingdom is trying to do, they're trying to create more public-private investing. And I think that'll be the characteristic that we're all going to be watching. So yes, we're going to have volatility in the next 90 days, but the big thing that I'll be watching, are we going to be able to see in every economy the opportunity for more active private investments? What I'm afraid of, we've relied too much here in the kingdom and in the United States, too much public investments. The vitality of any economy is based on private investing in the long run. And that's what we all should be watching.
Well, Mr. Chairman, you have a unique vantage point as chair of the Islamic Development Bank, which in many ways is definitionally public and private. How has volatility impacted the bank?
Not too much, but it has affected us in the sense that our partners in development are reconsidering because of the availability of funding, because of the concerns about the long-term sustainability of the programs that we've had for a while. For example, USAID has been a great partner in many of the things that were done. Now, what is going to happen is something else going to replace it. We also talk to our partners in the various 57 member countries, and they are asking us, is the dollar going to continue to be the currency that the Islamic Development Bank will use? And we say, yes, it will be. But the fact that they ask this question makes us worry. We need that predictability. We need that certainty. We need that calmness that we have had for a long time and should continue with us for the future, because too many unknowns make it more difficult to plan. And our business, as I said, is basic infrastructure. That's a long-term investment.
Definitely long-term.
And it needs all that long-term certainty, at least predictability. Uncertainty we can deal with. Unpredictability is the problem.
And Sarah, are you seeing that too?
Yes, of course. We're part of the global markets, and we are affected by volatility as well. Maybe our market is a little bit, in the past month or so, a little bit less volatile than others. However, certainty is important, but also volatility creates opportunities sometimes. So for us, that's just the nature of our business.
So I want to make sure on this point to hear from Steve and Jane and Jenny. Steve, just recently I heard you say exactly what Sarah just said. This is sometime with volatility comes opportunity, and it's when Blackstone pounces. So what are the areas that you see that could become opportunities? I know data centers, of course, has always been in your portfolio. I think you're the largest infrastructure data center investor.
Right. Well, I guess two things. First, to finish up the question you asked the first time when we got $20 billion, how have we done? I wasn't trying to avoid that question. We've earned 17.5% compound. When we set up the deal with our friends at PIF, we were expecting to get 8-9% normal infrastructure types of returns. So we made a mistake. We're close to 100% over what we expected. So we have a lot of happy friends, and we're very pleased with what we've done. In terms of what we're looking at now, as major themes, there are two things in there interrelated. One is in the data center world. At Blackstone, we're the #1 developer of data centers in the world and the #1 owner of data centers. And what happens when you create data centers, principally for AI, although also for the cloud, they make enormous demands on the electric grid, electric system. And in the developed world, we're in danger of running out of electricity. I know that sounds a little, hyperbolic. That may change as semiconductors become much more efficient. But in today's world, if you were to straight line it, you'd be really browning out in a lot of places in 5 years is sort of the projection. And so this provides enormous opportunities globally to deploy money at what will be much higher than traditional kinds of returns, whether it's for utilities or all the equipment that you need. Because in the United States, for example, there was no growth basically in electricity over a 20-year period. Now we're moving into a world where it looks like it's 3.5% to 4% growth. So that anything you buy that was priced for no growth world will become worth much more money as you go into a growth business.
Jane, you're equally optimistic, and certainly, as I said earlier, the families and founders that we work with are wondering, is this the opportunity? And what regions and what industries particularly families and founders?
Yes. So for the families and founders, I think there's a quite remarkable opportunity, because in volatility is the opportunity for those who get on the front foot and seize the moment. Here in the kingdom, as we've talked about, there are a lot of domestic opportunities. We're now in an era of more of national self-interest than the big global focus has been. Our encouragement would be, look at where are the new emerging industries that are coming through, the innovation that's happening in the life sciences space, what's happening in gaming, unleashing the female entrepreneur. I think we're already seeing some of the opportunities that are happening here in the kingdom from that. And I would say keep going, ladies, on that front.
Jenny, can you close us out? And also the voice of the retail investor, if you will. What is volatility? How is volatility impacting?
I'll say three things. One is, look, it is difficult to have a good risk-adjusted portfolio in times of market concentration like you have with Magnificent Seven, right? And so whenever there's volatility, there's a reset, and that's when active management, I think, thrives. So that's number one. Number two, in the alternative space, permanent capital in times like this is a really good thing. If you're in a project, you have the ability, people don't run for the hills, they stick invested. And then the third, because there's been so much money invested in permanent capital, I'm a big believer in secondaries private equity, because there's so many who need liquidity, and it's a great time to be in that space.
Definitely. Well, again, too short of a time. You all were terrific. Thank you so much for your perspectives. And can we give our panel a round of applause, please? Thank you. Great job.